Welcome to my first ever beatbox mixing tutorial. In this video I'm gonna show you how I got from this to this. So stay tuned if you want to find out. Yo, what's up, my current feature beatbox? Welcome back to another video with your boy Madox, aka
Man of Culture.
Today I'm gonna take the new song of Codfish, Swimming Like a Toad, and mix it in 3 different styles. First is a natural mix, second is a high production mix, and third is a
overproduced mix.
And before you start worrying, of course I ask for permission this time. You know, this is how you do it if you have culture. Alright, so let's go directly into the project. And this time I'm actually gonna wear headphones. For mixing I usually use the Beyerdynamic DT880. They are half open, that means they're not completely closed, but the sound feels a bit more natural. I wouldn't recommend these headphones though for recording because they're bleeding. That means that there's common sound outside of the headphones. They're just for mixing. So because this is just in a mixing example, I took some parts of the song. So at the beginning there's like the singing part.
Long nosed serpent spitting fire.
Then also like the transition and into the last drop. And then, of course, the ending.
Swimming like a toad, keep it low like you're poison.
Exactly. So for the natural mix, I want to keep everything on one layer because I don't want to have like issues when I'm fading something. That's what I would do on a higher production. You're gonna see later what I mean by this. So step number 1 is compressing and EQing. As you can see on the meter, this is already like on the limit. So I'm gonna turn down the whole thing by 6 dB, so I have a bit more headroom to work with. And then I'm gonna start with simple compressor. I'm gonna use the RVox, which is a plugin from Waves. By the way, I'm in Logic right now. Some people use Ableton, some people use FL Studio. I prefer Logic to mix beatboxing because this software is pretty nice to treat audio recordings that are coming mainly from the voice. And usually I start mixing like the heaviest part, so I think it's this drop. Because this is like, has to be the loudest, so I try to mix this first, and then the rest has to fit. So for the first compressor, I'm gonna try to go something between 12 and 6. It's like the reduction that the compressor does. So what a compressor does is basically he lowers like the louder parts. So at the end you can turn up everything else and it appears to be louder for beginners. Let's put it like that. And I like this compressor because it's basically just here. Just this one fader. It's really easy to use and it works for vocals. Next up, I'm gonna put an EQ. I'm gonna use the normal channel EQ. So first I wanna improve like the bass sound. Especially like the vibration bass needs a lot. And also like usually I would make like a peak for the kick. Either at like for a club kick I usually push at like 50 hertz or like a house kick. So house kick is like really low to get like bass from the actual kick. But this is like a more hip hop track, so probably I would push at like 80 hertz. And as you can see, like the root note of the vibration bass is actually here at, if I sweep through it, it's like here, it's like 75 hertz. Let's see if there's a even lower note. That has like bass frequencies. here. This one you probably only hear with like good headphones, but I'm probably not gonna push this too much. Yeah, so I wanna have the vibration bass heavy as. Okay, next one I'm gonna check like 80 hertz if it needs to be pushed. This makes it a bit more present. So if I overdo it, it sounds like this. And usually I first search for the frequency where it sounds like the most natural, and then I turn it down until it sounds good. Yeah, it gives it more presence. And then I check the frequencies at like 5,000. Like at 5,000, usually you get like presence for like kick and snare. But you have to watch out, because if we push too much at like 7,000, there's like sibilances. So it's like really loud S sounds, and this can hurt your ears. But we can take care of this later with a de-esser. Yeah, and then for the air, I'm gonna look. Yeah, like here, you hear the hi-hat? It's too much, because it's like around the 7,000, I'm pushing too much. So I'm gonna turn up, because I just wanna improve the air. So it feels like closer to the ear. At least that's what it does to me. So now I'm gonna take saturation knob by Soft Tube. Really easy tool. It's just one knob, and then it has here this trigger here. And usually I put it on keep low, so it just saturates mids and highs. I don't want to saturate the bass frequencies, because usually it gets muddy. And then here you can pretty much turn it up until it tells you that it's clipping in the plug. But then also you have to check like really loud parts. Yeah, cool. And then on the next step, I'm gonna use Smack Attack. Sounds fancy. What this plugin does, it's basically a transient shaper. Transients are usually like kicks and snares, something that gives punch to the track. What I like about this plugin is like, it's simple. I like simple plugins. So I'm just gonna push attack a bit. I'm gonna put it on clip. So what this does is kind of like a limiter, but it's not really like a limiter would cut, but a clipper is like distorting the peaks. If it's a nice plugin, you won't notice a distortion. It just sounds like heavy. What the clipper does, it reduces the volume and makes sure it's not getting reduced more than 6 dB. That's like, for me, like a rule of thumb. When I use compression or something, I try to not reduce more than 6 dB. When I need to reduce more, I use a second one. So yeah, I'm not getting lost in like heavy compression. All right. Then on the next step, I'm going to create a bus for reverb. I'm going to put it on a bus. So a bus is something that sends the signal to another track. So it's not on this track, but it's like on a separate track. And on this bus, I'm going to put some reverb. I've created a reverb for middle school. So if I turn it up completely, it's going to sound like this. So let's put it on like 0. Way too much. I think that's fine, like -20. And then usually I put a low cut on the reverb, but in the plugin itself, it already has a low cut. Like usually for beatboxing, I'm cutting like the really lows and I'm cutting like the really highs, because on the highs, yeah, like snares and stuff, sometimes it gets like weird artifacts on the reverb. So I just want to have like like a mid boost on the reverb. Yeah, sounds good to me. So now I have like the basic mix, and now on the master, I'm going to put Vitamin, which is like a multipressor. And this one has some nice factory presets. I'm gonna try to use the mastering one. And this is like, you can see it kind of like in EQ. You can like boost like lows, low mids, high mids and highs. But the difference is you're not really making the frequencies louder. You're just compressing it a bit so it appears louder. That's basically what a multipressor does. Yeah, and then last step, limiting. And my favorite limiter is the mushroom pusher. This has a lot of knobs, but most of the times I'm just using this. This is like just making it louder, pretty much. And here basically you can turn it up until it sounds distorted, and then turn it down a bit. Here you can see like how much the limiter works. And I don't actually want to have it more than 6. And I'm also gonna, like, there's a limiting mode and a clipper mode. I'm gonna use the clipper because I wanna preserve like the transients. If you do limiting, it will cut the transients, but on clipping, it just like distorts the transients, but it still feels punchy. And also here, you can boost the low end. You can also boost the highs, but most of the times this is too much for me because I rather prefer to do it with EQ. Yeah, it just like sibilances getting like ugly. This one also helps to improve the stereo field, but the only thing that is stereo right now is reverbs. I'm not gonna use it too much. Yeah, so let's say we want to have the mix even louder. I'm not gonna use a limiter to make it louder, but I'm using parallel processing. I'm gonna create another bus, pretty much like with the reverb. I'm gonna use RVox, which is my favorite compressor. This time I'm gonna compress it like heavy. On top of this distortion, one of my favorite one is Camel Crusher. The problem is right now, because I was updating Logic, this looks like, yeah, it looks really confusing. Usually it looks better, but I know exactly how to use it. Basically what it does is it's distorting, but in a really pleasing way, I would say. And yeah, as you can see, I created a middle school preset. So this is way too much right now. So, and now what I do is I listen to it and then I turn it up until it gets too much, and then I turn it down again. And why I'm not doing this on the main track is, if I would put this on a main track, it would kill all the transients. So before the vitamin S, for the hi-hats, because they can appear too harsh, I'm gonna put the DS. As you can see, it's not only reducing the hi-hats, but also this. This reduces like frequencies that are too harsh for the ear. You know, when you really turn up your headphones, it can hurt your ears. So with a de-esser, you can save the ears. And also here, golden rule, -6 dB, not more. And then final step that I'm gonna do is one of my new favorite plugins, Soothe 2. It's kind of like a de-esser, but at the same time, it reduces harsh frequencies. As you can see, like, actually does a lot here. Yeah, it's mainly like for the harsh frequencies. But the cool thing here is, like, the esser, it just cuts everything like in the band that you're selecting, but this one is just in the very moment and just a few frequencies. So you barely notice it, but it just appears a bit smoother. All right, so after I mixed like the drop part, I usually check the rest.
Long-nosed serpent spitting fire.
Now, because I was boosting the low end so much, you will hear bass going on the singing part.
Long-nosed serpent spitting fire.
Yeah, sounds horrible. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a single band EQ, not too crazy. Put a low cut everywhere where I don't need bass. So at the beginning there's bass, I need it.
No serpent. Long-nosed serpent spitting fire.
This is too much right now, so I'm gonna put
Long-nosed serpent spitting. Long-nosed serpent spitting fire. Long-nosed serpent spitting fire.
110 sounds nice to me. And this I'm gonna do for the whole track. Everywhere where you don't need bass, cut the bass. Even like on snares, it will make the whole thing sound way cleaner. And I'm doing automation with like a little bit of a transition, so you don't hear like a cut or something.
What will you do without the freedom to...
Freedom also needs bass.
What will you do without the freedom to sing?
The same way you can automate the low cut, we can also automate now our distortion bus. And I'm probably gonna do this also before the drop. So the drop at the end appears louder and heavy. And maybe with the build up, gonna turn it up. Let's try to go full 0 and
Honest.
works. In the last step, I'm actually gonna use tonal balance control. This pretty much shows me like it compares the frequencies to like popular mixing styles, and you can like select what kind of mixing style you want to go for. I'm selecting bass heavy, and then it tells me like, okay, does it have enough bass, too much bass, and highs, low mids, high mids. As you can see, I probably was overdriving bass section a bit too much, so I'm gonna reduce by 3 dB. I think that's it. So what I usually also do is I take another pair of headphones, because these headphones are really clean, but because they're half open, I can't hear the bass so much, because half open headphones don't have like so much pressure. So for the final step, just to hear the bass better, or to feel the bass. Sounds good. All right, so let's check our result.
Long-nosed serpent spitting fire. Haze closes in, temperature gets higher. What will you do without the freedom to sing? Fighting for what's honest. Swimming like a toad, keep it low like you're poison.
Woo! Sounds good. So now this is like, I would say you could use a little bit less compression so it feels a bit more natural, because yeah, as I said, this is the natural mix, but I would say This is pretty much how I would do it if a beatboxer asked me for a natural mix. And now if you want to see the difference between a natural mix that I just did right here and a high production or even a overproduced piece, click the video right here.